And welcome to episode 58 of the Run in the Paint podcast. I'm Miles. I'm here with Nick, Joey, and Ben Axelrod. Guys, how are you all doing today?
What's up, everybody? Shout out to Miles for channeling his inner iCarly, Freddie Benson, going live in five, just for our first live podcast here.
Yeah,
I love it. I love
yeah,
it. Perfect for the start of free agency, right?
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's not too much going on just yet, but there is definitely some stuff to talk about in hopes that we get some action tonight.
Yes, we are an hour into free agency, currently 7:06. But yeah, our first ever live podcast. So make sure to leave a like if you're tuned in or watching this later post live stream. But yes, an hour into free agency and not a whole lot has happened yet, but there as Nick said, there is a lot of stuff to talk about. So I guess first up, we'll go with some news that occurred a couple of days ago, a trade with Dejounte Murray getting traded to the New Orleans Pelicans for Dyson Daniels, Larry Nance Jr., and two first-round picks. This was a deal that kind of seemed inevitable with Dejounte Murray getting moved at some point, and it ends up being the New Orleans Pelicans. Joey, what are your thoughts on this trade?
I think it's a good trade for the Pelicans. A perfect guy to pair up with Zion and the rest of the guys. CJ can go back to being like a traditional two, which he was thriving at with a ball dominant guard in Portland like Damian Lillard. So for the Pelicans, I think that's a great trade. You got rid of Larry Nance, which isn't the end of the world. Couple first round picks. And Dyson Daniels is the one that I think Atlanta was that's probably the key guy because he's a young, talented guy that hopefully will pair better with Trae Young and develop under Trae Young better. So I think it's all around like solid for both teams. Pelicans definitely get the better end of the deal though.
Ben, what did you think about this trade?
Oh, yeah. It's a interesting one, that's for sure. Of course, it's interesting what New Orleans only had to give up in return back to Atlanta, for Dejounte because, of course, like there are rumors of that before the trade deadline, the Hawks are telling them, you got to give up Herb Jones or like Brandon Ingram, something like that for him. But no, I mean, that was the off season, the Hawks, I guess, just really wanted to move on from him, which I thought was a good move from him, and I thought it was a nice package that they got back, and you know, for Pelicans, I think Dejounte's a great fit for that team, all around good trade for both teams, I think.
You think he's a good fit? I don't know because my question turns into what are they going to do with Brandon Ingram? Because I mean, Brandon Ingram is a guy who kind of after Zion has most of that offense revolving around him, and if Dejounte Murray's going to have a ball a lot more, then what do they do with him?
Yes, that was probably the biggest shock of this trade was that Brandon Ingram was not sent in what was not involved in this trade at all. The fact that he is still a Pelican after this trade is kind of crazy to me. You would have thought that he would have been involved somehow. So I guess well, first for the Pelicans, I think it's a great fit there. DeJounte there with Zion and CJ McCollum, who had a very good year last year. The question will be for them what they end up doing with Brandon Ingram because I still think that you trade Brandon Ingram because DeJounte and Brandon Ingram's kind of the same player as DeJounte. He's just 3 or 4 inches taller. So I think he's still going to be on the move.
Yeah, I'm very surprised he wasn't part of the trade deal, but it is kind of inevitable that he is going to be traded at some point within the next 24 hours, I would assume.
Now, for the Pelicans, do you guys think that this could elevate them a little bit? Because, I mean, DeJounte Murray, this is a guy that's been highly touted on the market for a long time. I mean, we thought he was going to get traded in the middle of the season. Didn't happen. The Hawks stood pat. Now they make this move, and you add, a very talented player to this already talented Pelicans team. Ben, how do you think this could elevate the Pelicans potentially heading into next season?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. To me, I'm thinking like depends on like what they do with Brandon Ingram because I mean, I'm not totally sure if they could get back in return for him, but like I think if he stays, like the start next season, yeah, I think that team's elevated. Like, definitely think that'll be a better team next season if that happens. And then, so like, but I mean, definitely it's like I think it's playmaking. Just having like better guy, taking the ball up for you and stuff on your team should help out the rest of the team. I'd say for sure. I mean, no matter what else really happens the rest of this off season for them.
I think New Orleans, their priority now probably goes to most likely trying to trade Brandon Ingram for a big, because when you look at this roster, I mean they're incredibly deep at the 1 through 4 positions, but now you traded Larry Nance Jr., who was a solid backup center. Jonas Valanciunas is probably going to leave the Pelicans this offseason as a free agent. And really all you've got is Misi, who you just drafted with the 21st overall pick. And I don't think that the Pelicans will want him starting at all day one. He could be solid down the line, but I think that their attention goes to trying to get a center in exchange for Brandon Ingram to try to open up the small forward position. Something that's kind of interesting now is, with Dejounte going in there, you're going to have one of Herb Jones or Trey Murphy now probably coming off the bench. And these are two guys that are very, really starter caliber players, very young, talented guys that are probably not going to be on the second unit unless, one of them moves into the starting five when Ingram gets traded. But I think that's just kind of interesting to me that those two guys are not going to be for sure starters next year.
Yeah, that's a very good point, Miles. Both those guys could be like early 6-man of the year candidates for sure. I think another interesting part of this is the fact that Atlanta got a really good, young, talented point guard in Dyson Daniels, and I think that's going to be like a bigger piece of this trade than most people might think right now.
I think Dyson will definitely be a help for them defensively. He's been a good defender already.
Now, with the Atlanta Hawks side of things, we knew that this trade was probably going to happen. That either Trey or Dejounte was going to get traded. Now Dejounte Murray is traded, and you didn't really get a whole lot in return besides Dyson Daniels and a couple first-round picks. Larry Nance Jr. is solid, but he was just there for really to match salaries and all that. I begin to wonder with this team if it's going to lead up to several more trades, because it didn't seem like when Shams and Woj first reported this that this was like all right, we're now set now that Dejounte is traded. Could they still move a Trae Young and decide to go full rebuild tank mode, or will they still stay mid?
They've been active already. I think you're on the right path with that, because they made the DeAndre Hunter trade, or the AJ Griffin trade, I'm sorry, with Houston. And they had the first pick in the draft. And I think they should have drafted Sarr, but that's a different story.
At this point, if they end up going into a full rebuild, then it looks more towards that direction.
Right.
If the Hawks aren't as competitive. Joey, what do you think about the Hawks side of this trade? Could we be seeing more deals post Dejounte trade?
I feel like you have to, because I don't know. Obviously, Ricochet is going to be a good player, but it might take him a minute. But the rest of the guys, you know who you're getting, but they need to upgrade a couple of the positions. I think personally on the wing, if they get an elite wing or something like that, I feel like they probably would have been great to get Brandon Ingram. I'm shocked that they didn't even try to get him, especially since they made the trade to get rid of it, to trade with them. I don't know, man. They definitely aren't conference contenders right now, and they want to be because they have Trae Young, and we can already tell by Trae Young he's already been very frustrated with the way the team has been the last couple of years.
Miles, do you think they could trade Trae Young?
I think that it's still a possibility, if because Atlanta right now, So they trade Dejounte Murray for Dyson Daniels, Larry Nance, 2 first-round picks. Uh, that doesn't make I don't know if that makes them a whole lot better. This may be a addition by subtraction sort of thing because we knew that the
Right.
2 guards wouldn't work together, and maybe when Trae Young is the lone ball handler with, Risa Shea, Bogdanovich, Jalen Johnson, and Capella Okongwu, maybe that makes them a better team. Maybe that does make them a better team. I don't think that elevates them, though, to be contenders, like you said, Joey, to where they probably want to be. So it might be in their better interest to move on from Trey Young. As crazy as it sounds, that might be the direction that they have to go because I don't think that Trey Young is going to be happy with that situation there if they're still a mid playing team in Atlanta.
I got a question. How many years does he still have on his contract?
So Trey Young is under contract until 2027. He still has 3 more years under his contract.
I think you keep him for this year to see how it goes, to see if they can play again better. With, like you said, the addition with subtraction, like they get better just by losing Dejounte because it clearly didn't work. But again, if you're a mid-table team again and Trey Young is still frustrated because you haven't been making more moves, honestly, probably next summer would be the most value because then you got 2 more years. Any team, then you can still sign him to an extension. Next year, I think, is going to be his prime time to get traded. Not this summer, though.
And I mean, when you look around the league as well, like there aren't a whole lot of teams that are in need for a star point guard like that. Like when you look around the league, like I don't know if Trey Young would really fit across most other teams in the NBA right now.
Imagine him going to New York.
Eh,
It's just the first thing I thought of just because of the Hawks Knicks series, and he just like completely roasted the Knicks years ago. I think that would be hilarious.
Yeah, from the fans, that would be crazy. So I guess before we move on from this trade to the start of free agency here, if you had to give a grade for both sides, Nick, we'll start with you for the Pelicans and the Hawks from this trade. What would you give on the Dejounte Murray trade?
I'd probably give the Pels a B plus because you got Dejounte Murray without having to give up Brandon Ingram, but you lost Dyson Daniels and starting caliber / backup Larry Nance. B plus, and then for the Hawks, C plus because you got a pretty decent but not great package back for one of your core guys.
I bet Ben. How about you?
I agree with Nick. Actually, I mean, that's what I would say too.
I was about to say mine was going to be A- and a B-. A- for the Pels. Like, so I'm not too far off from y'all. Like, I think the Pelicans getting Dejounte without getting rid of Brandon is great because then they can get another package for Brandon. But for the Hawks, I would give it like a B-, even probably C plus because they could use someone like Brandon. They probably should have tried to sweeten the deal a little more just to get him.
Yeah, I would probably give this near the same thing. I would probably give an A minus to the Pelicans because this does get you a lot better. Like when you look at the Pelicans in the Western Conference, I mean, underratedly because they ended up in the play-in and they got swept by OKC in the first round. They had a very good regular season. They had 49 wins. They were tied for the 6th seed, ended up the 7th seed. And this did get them better, a lot better, in my opinion, especially in clutch time. Because I think the number that Woj gave, or the numbers that he gave in his tweet after the Dejounte news was revealed, was that the Pelicans were 0-24 last season when trailing going into the 4th quarter, and then something like 2-14 in clutch time. Now, when you look at Dejounte Murray, these are all clutch highlights that he gave the Hawks last season. He had several game winners, buzzer beaters a couple times. Well, buzzer beater here against the Orlando Magic. But he made several clutch shots for the Atlanta Hawks last season. And if he can give this sort of production to the Pelicans, it maybe can move them from 49 wins to maybe 51, 52 wins fighting for home court in the Western Conference.
Yeah, it'd be cool if Pelicans were sitting in the top 3, 4, 5 spots in the West, and Dejounte's having a great year, and he's in the combo for Clutch Player of the Year. Like, that would be this trade pretty much turning up roses for the Pelicans. I would have to move it from B+ to an A+.
Yeah, this could be a altering trade, franchise altering trade for them if he can perform like that in the clutch for the New Orleans Pelicans. But let's move on to free agency. There hasn't been a whole lot of signings so far, at least not with the big names. I guess quickly the signings that really have already happened, I guess, since 6 o'clock hit. The first news was Luke Cornett returning to the Boston Celtics for 1 year. Then Kevin Love returning to the Miami Heat for 2 years, $8.5 million. We have Andre Drummond to the 76ers for 2 years, $10 million. And I really like this signing.
That dude is. Go ahead, Joey.
Oh no, go, because I have the one that just happened. I saw.
Yeah.
Yeah. Drummond, the meme machine, right next to Joel.
Drummond's a perfect backup for Embiid, though. He really is.
The meme machine and the dirtiest player in the league.
I just need Drummond to dunk on Embiid like he did his own teammate last year.
Or off the backboard alley-oop over. That was still one of the funniest highlights. But no, and, Drummond, he actually, I mean, we can forget this because Drummond's been a bit of a journeyman, but he was the backup to Joel Embiid in Philadelphia for the start of the 2021-22 season. And he was very, very solid in that role, putting up, solid numbers. I mean, 9 boards in 18 minutes per game. That's basically what he did last year. He was really good last year. So having him as a Embiid's backup and as a spot starter in case Embiid does get injured, that's huge. It's a huge upgrade over what they were getting from Paul Reed. I mean, Paul Reed was solid, but you'd rather get, a double-double machine off the bench than Paul Reed.
Yeah, it's a very underrated signing that Sixers fans should be very happy about.
Yeah, on a good contract as well.
Yeah, 2 years, $10 million is awesome. I mean, but it shows that Andre Drummond, he wants to win. He wants to be in a situation where he can win. I mean, earlier in his career, I mean, when he was with the Pistons and the Cavaliers, it was noted kind of how he was, sort of chasing his numbers a little bit. But he's been a role player guy the last few years for several different teams, and it's worked out pretty well. Chicago, he was very good for Chicago the last couple seasons, but they're not really competing for a championship. Now he could be in a situation where they can compete again with the 76ers.
Yeah, no, it's a great pickup. What about the signing that just happened? Kevin Porter Jr. 2-year deal to the Los Angeles Clippers.
This is coming out of absolute nowhere. I did not expect him to be back in the NBA, but he is going to the Clippers for, yes, like you said, 2 years. Do we have the money yet, or does it just say 2 years?
I just saw the 2 years.
The 2-year deal for player option included. No money I haven't seen.
Oh, he's got a player option. If anything, I would have done a team option because he hasn't even played like a full year of basketball in how long?
Well, Shams reported Kevin Porter Jr. has agreed to a 2-year deal with the LA Clippers, including a player option. After 6 weeks of strong play in Greece in April and May, Porter had multiple NBA suitors and chose the Clippers. So he had a lot of teams looking out for him to try to sign him. And this is a guy that, Nick, go ahead.
2.2 mil.
2 point. Okay.
Wow, 2.2. So this is sort of a bet on yourself type deal, which I think is that's probably the deal that he was gonna get. Kevin Porter, this is a talented young guy. I mean, we had him the first year of his career when he was with the Cavs, but he just off-court stuff had kind of ruined his career really through the first couple seasons. I mean, when coming in that first year with the Cavs, when it was Garland, Sexton, and Porter, I was like, Porter is going to be the best player out of these three. He had the best talent, but off-court issues and him not being able to really take it seriously really harped on him. And of course, he had a 3rd-degree reckless assault misdemeanor in January. Did not play at all last season after a couple solid years with the with the Houston Rockets, but now going to the Clippers. Nick, what are your thoughts on this sort of shocking signing?
Yeah, definitely a surprise. This is a guy with a long history of fine and technical fouls in the league. Like the league knows he's definitely on everybody's radar who follows the NBA. And I don't know. I think it probably says more about the Clippers than and a willingness to add a guy like KPJ back into the locker room than anything about Kevin Porter himself. Like he is, like you said, he's a very talented young player who can make an impact.
Now, I just got a crazy, it hasn't come from Woj and Shams yet, but per Jeff Zilga, NBA reporter for USA Today, news that Nuggets guard Kentavious Caldwell Pope is signing a 3-year deal to join the Orlando Magic.
Orlando Magic.
I thought you were going to say the
Orlando
Lakers.
Magic.
No, he's going to the
Orlando
Magic,
Magic.
man. This is
Orlando
wow. So
Magic.
KCP is leaving the Denver Nuggets to go and be the starting shooting guard, looks like, for the Orlando Magic. 3-year, $66 million deal with the Magic. Joey, what are your thoughts on this breaking news?
Wow, that's a lot of money. But hey, just what Orlando needs, just another talented guard on their team, right? Like, come on. They have so many guys in that guard position, but KCP is the proven guy. Like, he's a great fit for a team like that is a playoff contender already. Like, high potential, like high playoff contender. So this is like a perfect fit to help with Paolo, Franz, and that whole crew, I think. I think that's
Ben,
a very
what are
nice
your initial reactions on KCP to the Magic?
I think it's such a good move by them. I love this for Orlando. I mean, my main reason of why I love this for Orlando is, well, it's just he's a good 3-point shooter. Could really help space the floor for that team. And I watched the Magic, of course, a lot because I'm a big Cavs fan. Saw them play them in the first round. Like, man, this Magic team badly needs somebody who could come in and be a good 3D guy that could be a good shooter, good floor speedster. KCP, yeah,
and they need
great
one
at
of those.
that.
Yeah, they need a consistent 3-point shooter to help space that floor. You're absolutely right. And this is a good one to get.
Because we saw last year in the playoffs against the Cavaliers, the strategy defensively for the Cavs, let anyone shoot a three because they do not have a reliable 3-point shooter. And it worked. The Magic really could not make a three consistently in that series. And it was probably the biggest reason they ended up losing that series in 7 games. You get a guy who's been, a 2-time NBA champion as a starter. And the last couple seasons for the Nuggets has been a 41% 3-point shooter. And it's perfect. He's been a great defender as well. Just a perfect signing for the Magic here to get a guy like that in there, a veteran, proven guy. Just perfect for them. Nick, what do you think?
I wonder if this will be like the first of maybe a couple moves to bring in some veteran leadership in Orlando. Like you already said the name Jonas Valanciunas, but that would be a perfect fit in Orlando. I mean, they would be really scary. Like my initial thoughts were like, oh, that's not good for the Cavs, or that's not good for anyone else, like Indiana or anyone who's below Boston and New York in the East. But like I said, I would be interested to see if maybe they make a couple more moves geared in the same direction.
This is definitely the catalyst to start it because, at least as for me as a Cavs fan, that's what I wanted us to do. Sign some good veterans guys with our young potential guys.
You mean like
that
George
are
Niang?
all developing. And we get George's Niang and they get KCP, who's a proven champ. Like, come on. Like,
Let's see.
yeah,
So
I think this is. I think I'm with you, Nick. I think they'll definitely get a bunch of more veteran guys to help them take the next step, which they need to do. This is a perfect move for Orlando. Good mindset they got.
Yeah, so now coming into today, I guess I had 3 big headlines noted out for free agency. One of them included Paul George. Of course, we don't have much news really because everyone's waiting to see what Paul George is going to do. but it came out that he was taking 3 free agency meetings. When's the last time we had a player taking meetings? But,
LeBron.
yeah, pretty much, but he's taking meetings with
Did
the LA
LeBron
Clippers.
did LeBron
The
take a meeting with the Heat when he went there?
Oh, yes. He definitely did. And, well, I think, like, the last I can remember was, like, Kevin Durant in 2016,
Oh yeah.
when he was gonna go to the Warriors. He visited, like, the Celtics, the Spurs, obviously the Thunder at that time, ended up going to the Warriors, but the 3 teams Paul George is meeting with is, of course, the LA Clippers, the Philadelphia 76ers, and the Orlando Magic. So I was just even if the Magic didn't end up getting any like veteran guys, I was gonna say, man, huge W for the Magic that they got a meeting with Paul George. Huge step up for that franchise. But now this makes me wonder if they are out of the Paul George sweepstakes getting Contavious Caldwell Pope because it I don't know. I don't know if it would fit there with Paul George now if he went to the Magic in that starting group because you already got Franz Wagner and Paolo as your 3 and 4. I doubt you're paying 20 plus million to Caldwell Pope to have him come off the bench. And you've already got Suggs and then Wendell Carter at the 5. I don't think that they're going to get Paul George now.
I agree.
Doesn't really seem like it there.
Doesn't seem like the best fit to me too now.
Yeah, I think that if Paul George was going to go, he was going to go to be the shooting guard there for the Magic. But it doesn't look like that'll be the case now. So probably looks like it'll either be the Clippers or he'll go to the 76ers, which would be crazy if he ended up in Philly.
I want him to go to
Yeah.
Philly just to make Goglin mad.
It would be great for both sides, honestly, for Paul George and the Sixers if that ended up happening. It's looking like that might be the case now with Caldwell Pope going to the Orlando Magic. Well, while we wait for some other free agency moves to come out, let's talk about a new coaching hire that came out this morning with the Detroit Pistons hiring former Cavs head coach JB Bickerstaff to I believe, a 5-year contract to become their next head coach. Nick, what are your thoughts on the Pistons hiring JB Bickerstaff to that young group?
You should start with someone. No, I'm just kidding. No, well, JB helped the Cavs with defense most of the time he was there, and he's definitely gonna have his work cut out for him in Detroit with the same task because Detroit has been a wreck for the last couple of years, but they do have some offense, natural talented guys. Like if you can kind of do what you did with Donovan and Darius with Cade and Jay and Ivy, it's kind of a similar playbook in that regard. But they like you got Jalen Duren out there. You just drafted a really talented two-way guy in Ron Holland. Some tough guys on the roster, and I think, although I wouldn't have personally made this move for Monty Williams to be replaced with JB Bickerstaff, it might work out. I don't think it'll be terrible. I really have liked Detroit the last couple of years with this roster. They kind of gotten through the draft, and I hope JB can lead them to a little bit more success than they've had.
Joey, how about you? How do you think this could help the Pistons kind of improve? Because JB is kind of going to the Pistons in a similar state where he went to the Cavs in their rebuild.
I love this hiring for them. I really do. I think Detroit they have such a talented roster. Like a couple of years ago, I thought Orlando and Detroit by now would be where Orlando is, like contending for a playoff spot. But unfortunately, Detroit has been just a complete mess. They don't have a direction. I don't think they trying to build around Cade. He's been a little injured, and then they get a bunch of other really talented guys. It just hasn't meshed well. And then you get a coach like last year in Monty who didn't want to be there. He really didn't. So now getting JB, who has done it for the Cavs and other guys like Houston as well, where he takes these teams that are super young and have high potential and makes them a playoff contender. I think this is the perfect man. It's going to take a couple of years, of course. always does. But if you want someone to bring you with direction and help develop these young guys, I think it's a perfect fit. I loved him on the Cavs. I just thought his potential was maxed out with us. So this is like the perfect situation. He's a great developmental coach. I think this is just perfect for Detroit. I think this is the right step in the right direction.
At the very least, he can coach, and he's going to have those young guys all buy in to what he asks them to do. Ben, what do you think about this hire for the Pistons? Similar thoughts about how maybe this could improve them going forward?
So I thought this was a great hire. Similar reasons to some of you guys because, well, of the success he's had with being able to turn around other young, rebuilding teams, in the playoff contenders eventually, like a few years after, he's got started with doing that. And yeah, you know, definitely be interesting to see if he could do that again with the Pistons. But I mean, thought it was the right hire by them because he's proven he can do that, and I think you should believe in him that he can do that. As I believe he's got a shot at doing that with this Pistons team, and he'll definitely help with young player development too, which is you know definitely really important with that team now because I think that's been kind of a mess recently there in Detroit recently.
Yeah,
Well,
player development and defense. He'll bring that with him to Detroit for sure. Nick, what were you going to say?
they believe in him enough to give him 5 years.
Which I think that's just the going rate for coaches now, honestly.
Yeah.
And I think it makes sense because the Pistons, they could be thinking, in 5 years, they could be where the Cavs are right now, if they're trying to think that timeline. To just slowly, steadily improve from bottom of the league to play into playoffs to maybe a series win. So I think great hire for the Pistons. I don't think that there were much better options out there, and I think this is a perfect situation for Bickerstaff.
I was
Well, it's
about to
good
say,
that.
yeah.
Sorry, Joe. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. No, sorry. I did think there was really no better option because I do know they were thinking about Borrego as well, but he also pulled his name out of the ring as
Yeah, he
well.
backed out.
Because to be fair, who wants to go to Detroit? But JB believes in himself, and he's the man for the job.
And he already lives super close by there, being in Cleveland the last few years. So it's
Only a couple-hour drive. Yeah,
not a huge move there for him and his family. So now let's gear our attention back to free agency, and I guess look at the headlines of free agency going in for the next couple days. Already mentioned the Paul George thing, that him taking meetings with the Clippers, Sixers, and the Magic. I think big headline number 2 is LeBron James saying that he is willing to take a little bit of a pay cut if the Lakers are able to sign another, I guess, role player, solid player to help fit their team and improve them. What do you guys think about this?
about time. About time. Tim Duncan did this his entire career, and they won 5 championships with him. Like he should have done this ages ago. That's my opinion, though. Sorry.
No, it's a good point. I wonder who they're targeting.
Yeah, you wonder who they're targeting. Well, I know one of the names is Klay Thompson, who I'm putting into headline number 3 here, with looking like it's inevitable that Golden State and Klay Thompson are going to part ways after 13 seasons together. That dynasty is going to be broken up this offseason. The Warriors will look to find sign and trade options for Klay Thompson, which I think it's definitely a class move by the organization and them to try to help him get to a situation where that works best for him. But the teams that he's going to meet with are the Mavericks, Lakers, Clippers, and 76ers. So the Lakers included in that. I think all 4 of those teams would love to have a guy like Klay Thompson.
I'd like to see him in Dallas. That was the first name that stuck out to me when I saw the report. I think he would be a great shooter off the bench for a team that their best shooter off the bench was Hardaway, and he disappeared halfway through the season. So having someone like Klay that this year, even though it wasn't his best year, he can still be a more consistent shooter than Tim Hardaway.
Yeah, I mean Tim Hardaway, they traded him. They traded him because they were
Yeah,
so
they moved
tired
on
of
from
him.
him. Yeah.
Little small trick. Tim Hardaway and 3 second-round picks to those Pistons for Quentin Grimes going to the Mavericks. That should be a good pickup for the Mavericks. But Klay Thompson, I think we mentioned this. I know Jackson and I were talking about it like right after the Warriors were eliminated um in the playoffs. But talking about how Klay Thompson, he didn't have the best year. It was a very up and down season for him. Came off the bench midway through the season, ended up back in the starting lineup, and it really all got capped off by his scoreless playing game against Sacramento, which was just horrible. And that in turn has made NBA fans think that Klay Thompson is just a garbage can now who cannot play. When you look at his numbers overall over his final 25 games of the season, so a pretty long sample size, Klay Thompson put up 20 points per game and shot 42% from 3 on 10 attempts. That is really, really good for Klay Thompson. He just had the one bad game, and everyone now thinks that he's a garbage player. But I think that he'll
Yeah.
definitely have a starting job by the time the season starts next year. Where he goes, we'll see. But it'll be a spot where he can fit in for sure.
Yeah, it's all about who can put together the best package to hand over to the Warriors.
The Lakers, I mean, I really think, that would be another great fit for Klay Thompson if he were the good there. I mean, I think, how he is with spacing the floor and how good of a 3-point shooter is. I think that would definitely help that team if he were to go there. And LeBron should definitely take the pay cut if they could get Klay Thompson to go there. That's for sure.
I think that's the most likely option. I think that's where he's gonna go. His dad played there, won challenges there. I think it's just set in stone that Clay's gonna go there. Personally, I think it like you said, Ben, it is a really good fit. They need someone to space the floor and hit consistently, and that's what Clay has done his whole career.
Oh, and Klay with LeBron would be awesome. I've honestly wanted to see that for a little bit. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Let's take a look here. These are the top free agents by position here. And some of these guys, it's already been reported that they're re-signing with their current teams like Pascal Siakam, Nick Claxton. We know Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is now on the move to the Orlando Magic.
Harden
Crazy
signed
to
a
even
2-year
say.
deal.
Hartenstein
Yeah.
it was reported before we got on here that the Oklahoma City Thunder are currently meeting with Isaiah Hartenstein to try to pry him away from the Knicks.
Ooh.
Which would be a great fit there. But Emmanuel quickly re-signed with the Toronto Raptors for a large contract. There, I believe it was 5 years, $175 million. Let's see. We also had what was that? Who was the other? James Harden. That's what I was going to mention. James Harden re-signed with the Clippers for 2 years, $70 million. What do you guys think about this? The Clippers getting James Harden back after trading for him in the beginning of last season.
He played well. It's a good fit, especially if you think you're going to lose Paul George. You had to at least bring him back. I think he played solid with him. You can't be too mad, I don't think. It's not crazy amount of money that he probably wanted, but it's still a lot for Harden in his late 30s or 30s.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah,
30 mid-30s, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's brutal by any means. Nick, what do you think?
I think that Paul George should sign a 2-year deal like James Harden just did.
He wants that max, though. He wants that max.
Yeah, well, yeah. Oh,
he ain't going to get it.
That seems to be the thing that's kind of separating Paul George from the Clippers at this point is the Clippers have offered him a 3-year max, but he wants the 4 or 5-year max contract. And I don't blame the Clippers for not wanting to do that. I mean, you don't want to be paying Paul George and Kawhi all that money when they're at the very end of their career.
Agree with that. Yeah. I don't blame it on Paul George's end because this is his last year. to basically get this kind of max contract, and there's teams out there that are willing to pay for it. But again, you're smart by the Clippers for not trying to offer that, because they can't do that. You can't be paying Kawhi and Paul George in their late 30s that much money. You're handcuffing yourself.
No question about it. Paul George had a very solid year last year. When you look at his splits, he actually had the best shooting season of his career, the 41% from three. But you're right. I mean, Paul George, I mean, he's I want to say 33, 34 years old at this point. I mean, he's not going to get much better at this point. Yeah, he's 34 years old. So I don't think I think the Clippers should definitely hold on to their keys here and don't give him the full max contract.
Yeah, and I think Steve Ballmer's willing to die on that hill.
I think
Steve
that Paul
Ballmer's a
George,
good owner.
if he ended up in Philadelphia, where he would be the third option, would be amazing.
Agreed.
There, for
And
that.
that's a team that'll pay the max contract for him.
Rightfully so. It changes by situation. I think the Clippers don't offer him a max. If you're the Sixers, I think you can offer him the max.
Agreed.
Philadelphia in a situation where this is probably going to be their big year where, okay, this is going to be the year with Embiid that you need to go for it and try to get past the darn second round. I mean, the fact they haven't made it past the second round is incredible.
Yeah. My phone is at 1%, so it's gonna die any second. I'm sorry, guys.
Okay, so
For those people watching or later, I am helping my friends move, so I know it's not my normal setup, but I couldn't miss this.
I know, huge day. We appreciate you coming on. Jackson, our boy Jackson Goglin in our group chat texted saying that he's done rooting for the Clippers because they signed Kevin Porter Jr. So he's all done with that there.
Ask him if he's done with dinner so he can hop on.
Yeah, that's the reason why. That's the reason why he's not coming on, as Joey's phone must have just died there. Some other news. We were talking about the Golden State Warriors a little bit before. They released veteran, former All-Star point guard Chris Paul, who is now an unrestricted free agent. Today was the final day where they could guarantee him his $30 million for next season. And they decided not to deal with that. They decided to waive him. They've been trying to trade him the last couple days. There have been some reports that they were looking to trade him away. There was an offer actually that was on the table with the Chicago Bulls. The Bulls offered Zach LaVine to the Warriors for Chris Paul, Andrew Wiggins, and draft picks. The Warriors declined that deal and just, all right, we'll release Chris Paul, not pay him that money. I guess, Ben, we'll start with you. What are your thoughts on, I guess, this Chicago Bulls reported trade offer and the Warriors deciding, no, we're going to just release Chris Paul?
Wow, that's really interesting. I mean, I definitely like the offer that the Bulls, took there. I mean, I think it was a good decision by them. But for the Warriors, it's like, that's tricky. I mean, now it's like, now we just got rid of Chris Paul, the waivers lost him for nothing. But I mean, yeah, they could trade Wiggins though still, so it's like, huh.
Nick, what do you think about this?
I think, I don't know. Me personally, I think it was good by the Warriors, but interesting though.
Yeah, well, obviously the part where you're a Warriors fan is like, well, why did we just give up Chris Paul for nothing if we had an opportunity to trade for a borderline or also a dunk contest champ, but at the same time you don't want to mess anything up. You don't want to, I don't know, Zach LaVine, we've heard some things about him, I can't remember exactly what things I'm thinking of right now, but just he hasn't been a winner in Chicago. So
No, not at all. Like it's hard to say if that would even make the Warriors better there. If we have a Steph Curry, Zach LaVine backcourt, I mean, defensively, that's just not.
yeah,
That's really probably not going to work out for you with those two in the backcourt there. I mean, Chris Paul now being an unrestricted free agent, able to go anywhere he really wants for not a whole lot of money. Most likely, he could probably just go for a veteran minimum at this point. That'll be interesting to see where he ends up. He could end up being a Laker. The Denver Nuggets are interested in a backup point guard.
they've been talking to Russell Westbrook.
Yeah, so Russell Westbrook, he accepted his $4 million player option, and it came out that the Clippers are now looking to move his contract, and the Nuggets are interested in getting Russell Westbrook. And now that Contavious Caldwell Pope is gone to the Magic, this is an L offseason for the Nuggets so far because they've lost so much depth now at this point with Contavious Caldwell Pope at the two guard. You know, do you guys get worried now about the Denver Nuggets going into next season? Obviously the NBA champions last season or 2 seasons ago now, last year, they ran into a Minnesota team that was kind of built to beat them, but now you lose a key piece in Caldwell Pope. Does this lower them in the whole complexion of the Western Conference?
Well, we know the West is going to be tough, and it was kind of assumed that Denver was going to have like a clean shot through the West again this year, and that didn't happen. They came up short, lost to Minnesota, and Game 7 got embarrassed on their home court after being up by 30 at the half. Yeah, I think there's definitely some cause for concern because Nikola Jokic is not a juggernaut that just can clean up every single that can make up for everything. He can make up for a lot, but you had a really KCP. I heard Tim McMahon say stands for Keep Championship Players, and KCP was an integral part in their championship last year, and he was an integral part with the Lakers championship when he got his first ring. So, it yet to be seen. Like, I don't think you should be pressing any panic buttons for the Nuggets, but definitely unsettling is how I describe it.
I think Denver at this point they need to make some sort of move to make up for this because like I said with the depth, I mean that was their question really the whole season and that proved to be a big problem in that Timberwolves series.
Correct.
In the playoffs last season,
Yeah.
their 5 starters all averaged over 35 minutes per game. They only had 2 bench players that averaged over 10 minutes per game. They really couldn't go to their bench and you lose one of your starters. So this is going to cause for guys like Christian Brown, Julian Strother to have to play some big minutes at the 2 guard for them heading into next year. The Nuggets will be trying to find a cheap way to get a guard there to provide more depth. Ben, how do you think this could change things for the Nuggets in the Western Conference with Caldwell Pope leaving to the Magic?
Yeah, definitely really tough to lose him in free agency. But, with hearing that they're interested in Westbrook, I think he would be a nice fit on that team. So, I really hope they could get him for a trade. I think that would help with the backup point guard spot. And then it's like, still, even if they get Westbrook, they still won't have a lot of depth. And, I don't know. That's what's concerning me, the most for them. Christian Braun, I think he'd do a solid job in the starting lineup for them, but it's their depth, their backup guys that makes me kind of worried about this team in the Western Conference right now after losing Contavious Caldwell Pope.
And then you get the domino effect as well. The Nuggets, obviously, they want to keep Caldwell Pope. So to free up money, they traded Reggie Jackson and 3 second-round picks for nothing to just free up money to try to get him back. So they didn't get Caldwell Pope back, and you traded Reggie Jackson to get Caldwell Pope back, but you didn't get him. So you just lost 2 key guards for nothing. So that's just it's it's not looking great for the Nuggets there. Of course, I mean, they have those other 4 guys there with Jamal Murray, who just signed an extension, Michael Porter, Aaron Gordon, and of course Jokic leading the pack. They're of course still going to be in the running to be at the top of the West. They should still be one of the championship or Western Conference favorites at least. But it'll definitely be tougher for them now that they lose KCP there.
No, you're right. They need a move to make up for this.
Yeah, they definitely do, because losing. Now you look at these last 2 seasons, they lose Bruce Brown for nothing, and they lose Caldwell Pope for nothing. 2 key guys on that championship team, gone for nothing now. Looking across the rest of the NBA, I guess we'll look at the signings that have already occurred so far, heading in or before even today even started the extensions or the re-signees. Here are some 6 notable re-signees that we've talked about, some with Siakam, Monk, and Anunoby. But those last 3, or I guess we talked about Claxton a little bit too. The Patrick Williams thing for 5 years, $90 million to stay with the Chicago Bulls is something that I find very curious about, because this is a guy that former number 4 overall pick hasn't really been that great over his career, but he's also hasn't really the Bulls have been a team that have been pretty mid, but they've also had enough talent to where he couldn't be like a top option on that team. But he comes into this summer as a restricted free agent, and they didn't let him even get into restricted free agency. They wanted to sign him immediately to this 5-year, $90 million deal. What do you guys think about this for Patrick Williams and the Bulls?
Yeah, I was surprised as well, especially considering that he really hasn't made a huge impact or proven himself in any legitimate or significant way in the league yet so far. But he just signed for $90 million. So that was surprising. But it kind of feels like we might have a new look Chicago Bulls team next year, especially if they can dump Zach LaVine here in the next couple days. That would really, maybe give Patrick Williams a different shot with a different type of offense or a different style of play. And he may be able to take advantage of the opportunity once it's put in front of him in a different setting. So this could turn into a great move 5 years down the line when the former number 4 overall pick is averaging, being a good role player, 15 to 20 a game or something. That would be a stretch, I think, at this point. But
yeah,
he could definitely get there.
Yeah, he could develop. I mean, he's only, 23 years old, I believe? 22, 23 years old, going into next season. So he definitely has a lot of potential. That Bulls team, if they move on from Zach LaVine, if they move on from Vucevic, DeMar DeRozan goes somewhere else potentially. I mean, Kobe White, Josh Giddey, Patrick Williams as your 3, I guess, young guys to kind of go forward with. Yeah, Bazelis as well. Yes, who they just drafted. That's a nice young core to start with. Ben, what was your initial reaction when you saw this signing for the Chicago Bulls?
I was kind of surprised by it, but it's making me think in my head. Well, the Revs a free agent. They're interested in moving on for Levine. That's telling me in my head that they might, but just be trying to give it the or retool around Kobe White and with other young guys they have, especially because, also they traded for Josh Giddey too. And, I thought, that was a nice move by them, and, hope they could just move on from DeRozan and LaVine and just start building around Kobe White and get forward with that. I think that's the best direction that team could take this off season.
Yeah, so DeMar DeRozan, one of those top free agent guys, but there hasn't been any huge reports on other places where he could really go. It's kind of tough to kind of gauge his market to see how well he could fit on a competitive team, but he is one of those top guys out there available. We can go back to this, the top free agents here, with DeMar DeRozan. Is there a guy on this list, DeMar DeRozan or anywhere else that you guys want to go here, on guys that you want to see end up on a certain team?
I think Hartenstein would be really cool to see on OKC. Um, and
Yeah,
then we haven't talked about Miles Bridges yet, but I know he's been a hot name linked with the Pistons.
Yeah, that's an I guess under the radar guy, Miles Bridges, because I guess similar to Kevin Porter, missed the whole year because of, off the court issues. But did come back this season and put up some pretty good numbers, around like 22.7 boards per game on a bad team where he was their number one option for most of the season. But he's a guy that he's another guy. It's kind of hard to gauge his value to see how much money he could go for on the market and what team. I think the Pistons would be decent because that power forward spot could be open there. Um, that definitely could be interesting to see if he went back home to Michigan and Detroit there. Ben, how about you? Any guy that you want to see in a certain spot?
I really enjoy seeing Tobias Harris back with the Pistons as well. I think that would be really fun. I really like the fit there with that. I'm thinking he might end up signing their free agency, but we'll see.
Yeah, we can definitely see. The free agents, the signings have definitely slowed down a little bit here as we've gone on forward. It really is true. Everyone's just waiting to see what Paul George does. Um, but I mean, I think that now it's pretty safe to say that he will be either a Sixer or a Clipper. My vote would probably go to the Sixers. What do you guys?
Yeah, I don't know. I would probably have to agree with you, and that is kind of scary for everyone else in the East.
I agree with you guys too. Exactly, yeah.
Be
It
a
just
great.
feels like if he was signing with the Clippers, he would have done that by now.
Yeah, very
And
very
with
true.
this KCP signing to Orlando, it's kind of hard to envision the
Yeah.
Magic bringing in Paul George as well.
Yeah, so I think that him being a 76er, that's probably gonna happen. Trying to think. Clay, I mean, I think Clay Thompson. Do you guys have predictions about Clay Thompson on his whereabouts? Are you guys with Joey that he could be a Laker, or what do you guys think?
Joey made a good case for Dallas. I think I would make the same case for the Thunder because the Thunder kind of need a second, or well, their main shooter, their main floor spacer was like Isaiah Joe this year. He was their best guy. But Clay would be a great fit, even though they really need some height there in OKC. I think it'd be a lot of fun to watch Shea cook with Clay out there on the wing.
Yeah, that would definitely be fun.
Oh, yeah. I didn't really think about the Thunder yet with Clay, but that would be a nice fit. But I think it's, more important for them to try and get Hardenstein. But a good idea you floated there. But my prediction on where he's going to get to, I got to say, I got to give the Lakers. I don't know. I just feel like, with, his dad, playing for them a long time ago, that I just feel like they're just gonna have the best offer for Golden State to where they're gonna be able to get him. Things will work out. LeBron just been taking a pay cut over there.
Is LeBron taking a pay cut for Clay though?
I think
Well,
so.
I think he would.
I
Yeah,
think he definitely would because I think that Clay would help that team a lot. I think that he would take a pay cut. I think there was a report out there that he would take a pay cut for a James Harden, who's of course staying with the Clippers, but a Clay
and
Thompson and a Jonas Valanciunas
yeah,
even.
right.
Um,
Yeah, I think Valanciunas or Hardenstein would do more for the Lakers
than Clay Thompson.
than Clay Thompson would.
I honestly could agree with that because I think Anthony Davis would prefer to play the 4 and not the 5,
Yeah,
for whole games. I think that that's where the Lakers are the
they have
best.
no variability.
No, not really. Like their other center options last season were what Jackson Hayes and Christian Wood. That really was
Right.
it. That really was it. They had no flexibility to have another big. It was kind of hard to play AD with Jackson Hayes. I think that Valanciunas is a guy that I would honestly I want to see him end up a Laker because he's a guy that he probably won't be that expensive. He's used to not playing in fourth quarters anyway. He can start each half, provide some spacing. He is capable of knocking down the three. And he's a good post threat as well.
How interesting do you think a trade between the Lakers and the Warriors could potentially get, like with everything included? Like,
That's hard to say because it's hard to really see what the Lakers would be willing to give up. Because if Clay just signed there, I think that the starting five would kind of be it being if he fit there. If you'd have Clay as your small forward with D'Angelo Russell, who accepted his player option, so he's staying with the Lakers. So you have D'Lo, Reeves. You'd have Clay at the three with LeBron and AD. I don't know if I like Clay at the three, personally, but a trade you have to assume the trade would be D'Angelo Russell because that's what I would think, but maybe not. I don't think that the Lakers are willing to give up Reeves or Rui. They're not going to be willing to give that up. I think that it'd be D'Angelo Russell on the move. But even then, would the Warriors do that? Because you'd kind of be in the same situation you were with
right?
Chris Paul,
Yeah.
with just less money. Ben, what are your thoughts about the potential of a Lakers Warriors trade? Or do you think it makes more sense for Clay to just sign there or maybe go to a different team or but just sign with the Lakers instead of doing a sign and trade with Golden State?
I mean, if he really just wants to go there, I mean, me personally, I think he should just try signing like just a good deal that he would be happy with the team. But of course, Lakers like interesting. No, I think they should try to go after both Jonas Valanciunas or Clay, but who I think would be more important for them to get though, I think would be Jonas Valanciunas because I don't know. I think that would just help things out
Yeah,
like
the fit at the
even
five would
even
probably
more. With I would say with that team with AD then being able to move to the four. If you bring in Valanciunas to be the starting five, like that could help make Anthony Davis I think that could help make Anthony Davis more dangerous if they were able to move him back to the four and start at power forward.
Another thing that'd be interesting for the Lakers is Anthony Irwin has been reporting that the Blazers are in talks with the Lakers for a deal on Jeremy Grant, which would be, I think, a pretty good addition for the Lakers.
would be pretty decent. Jeremy Grant has always been well for the last few years. He's been an interesting case as far as, he started out as just a pure athletic guy, but then was really solid on OKC and Denver that one year as just a defensive player who can stretch out and hit threes. Then he goes to Detroit and Portland and becomes a number one option basically and learns how to score. So how would that work if he goes back to a, contending team? I guess kind of similar to Mikal Bridges going to the Knicks. Does he
I was
revert
gonna
back
see
to that role
OJ. I was
player?
gonna say OG.
Yeah, OG too, kind of, because you're going from a top scoring option to being back to a role player if that
Right.
were to happen. But Jeremy Green, he makes so much money.
I know.
That's where the question of a trade.
The Lakers have money.
I guess the Lakers do have money too to match that. Um, if that is necessary. I did like Nick. I like that the Dallas Mavericks things too, because I think that a thing with the Mavericks specifically when we got to the NBA finals last season was their role player guys just could not make open threes. It was kind of similar to the Orlando Magic for the whole season and in that Cavs series. When the Mavericks got up against the Celtics, their guys just could not make open threes. They couldn't generate open threes. And it was a big struggle for them. So if they were able to get a guy like Klay Thompson, I think that would be great for the Western Conference champions there in Dallas. Kyrie, Luca, and Clay. That's a great first three there. With Washington and Lively, developing there. So I think that Dallas would be fun for Clay as well.
Yeah, it says right
Yep.
here that the Clippers had offers from the Warriors, which included packages that did not involve Clay for Paul George, but the Clippers were not interested in trading Paul George to Golden State.
Yeah, that what did you guys think about that? About the Clippers just not they refused several offers, I think similar offers to what the Bulls offered or what the Bulls
Well,
got in return, but it involved Moody and Kuminga as well, and the Clippers
I
declined because they
can
didn't want to deal Paul George to the Clippers.
I think it's really smart about the Clippers because Paul George and Steph Curry are like heavenly like that is a duo that you create, like I don't know, like that is the perfect. They play. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, Steph,
I
they
can't even
they
put it into
work
words.
perfectly off of each other,
Yeah, I can't even
Steph
put it
and
into
Clay.
words because it would be really fun. Like it would be a nightmare.
That kind of seems like similar to like a Steph and Clay, honestly, when Clay was before his injuries, when he was an all defensive type player and could really shoot the basketball. It'd kind of be a similar fit there. I like that comparison a little bit. Um, Paul George and Steph Curry would be crazy, but I think that's probably now off the table there. Um, Ben, what do you think about the Clippers not wanting to deal Paul George to their division rival, the Golden State Warriors?
I think it was a good decision by them because you know I think they still like even then yesterday we're like yeah I think we got somewhat of a chance still to like sign him and it's like hey that I know that's a great deal stuff of course coming from the Warriors but I mean also still I mean we're still gonna have Kawhi and like Harden on the team. It's like well that definitely wouldn't help you know us, the Clippers, with competing for titles still, if you have them with like Paul George and the Warriors, because that just makes West even more tougher for them and just makes that Warriors team even more dangerous. And it's just, I think it was a good call by them, but for me, I mean, that would have.
Oh boy, as Ben leaves, he's coming. There we go. We got him back now. We got him back now. Well, actually, talking about Paul George, we just got a Woj bomb that Paul George's agent and Clippers president Lawrence Frank had a conversation a short time ago that resulted in no new movement on a deal and an acknowledgement by both that George is unlikely to return to the Clippers, which leaves the 76ers as strong frontrunners to land Paul George on a free agent deal. They will meet with Paul George in California tonight. So kind of what we were talking about
Wow,
there. Looks
big
like Paul
news.
George is. What was that, Ben?
Big news.
Yeah, it looks like PG to the East Coast to the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, it sounds like Paul George is going to
Wow.
end up with the Philadelphia
Let me
76ers.
just back up real quick though, because I'm so confused on the Klay Thompson thing. Like it says that he is going to be willing to take the mid-level exception with either of the teams out in LA. So why wouldn't he choose to stay in the Bay for the same amount of money?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know that one if he is willing to take the mid-level exception because the whole thing was that he still wanted his money.
Oh well, it says right here, Legion Hoops. This is from earlier today. Jake Fisher is reporting that could be willing to take that $13 million mid-level exception to join the Lakers or the Clippers.
Wow, that is a very very interesting point there. Um yeah, it really does make you think. I mean, I maybe the Warriors I mean that relationship is just no, that doesn't really make sense though because the whole thing is about the money. So,
Another name that was kind of circulating with the Lakers and involving big men was Brooke Lopez. I don't know if you saw that
Yeah.
they would potentially look for a trade for him.
yeah, the Bucks have been thinking about moving on from maybe a Chris Middleton or a Brooke Lopez, or moving on from them because just to change some things up. And the Bucks are the oldest team in the NBA. That's my biggest problem with them going into next season. Like I think that the second year for Dame and Giannis is going to be a lot better than this first year. It's just usually how it is. The second year is usually great. First year usually takes a lot of adjustments, but this team is old as dirt, and I do not believe in old teams to compete. So I think that they do need to make a move. Brooke Lopez to the Lakers would be great for LA if they were able to pull that off.
Yeah, I think again he would have a bigger impact, him, Valanciunas, or Hartenstein than Klay Thompson would, and I think it'd be much more fruitful for LeBron to take a pay cut for one of those three guys than it would be for Klay. And maybe if they can get one of those guys and Klay, if he takes the 13 million mid-level exception, then the Lakers could actually, somehow, you're 6 or 7 guys deep rotationally that are, not a liability on one end and can shoot the three on the other end, which is what we've seen is the key, the formula for success in the leagues. Have 8 or 9 guys who are who are able to play both ends of the floor.
Yeah, I mean those guys are definitely super valuable, but I do think that the Lakers would be more. I think that they would be better off with a center than getting another wing, as we talked about before here. Um, going to Paul George here. So if Paul George leaves, and it's looking like that is going to be the case, we might get news later tonight. Looking back on the initial Paul George trade from 2019 when they acquired him from the Thunder, now you look at this deal and it's going to be the Clippers getting Paul George, but giving OKC Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, who was just an MVP candidate, Danilo Gallinari, who was very good for them the 1 year he was there, 4 unprotected first round picks. 2 of them have become Trey Man and J-Dub, and then a 2025 pick swap, and then another future first round pick. And then the Clippers if they lose Paul George, they're going to lose him for nothing. That's an L at that point. It's an L because the Clippers, they didn't win anything. I mean, they got to the conference finals in 2021, but whether it was because of mostly injuries or the disappointing 2020 in the bubble, they didn't. This was a very disappointing Paul George era there for the Clippers in LA.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. Definitely just disappointing.
Ben, if Paul George does end up with the 76ers and he leaves the Clippers, where do you think the Clippers go from here? I mean, obviously they're in the market for Klay Thompson, but we really haven't heard them with any other crazy names. Where do you think the Clippers could go from here if Paul George is out the window?
It's a really interesting situation where they get premiered. Like they're looking at trades from Westbrook too now. It's like, okay, I don't quite get that. Like now, I think they're gonna lose Paul George and stuff. I don't really understand the direction that team's gonna go in, but I guess they're just gonna for next season. I mean, I think they're still gonna have Kawhi and Harden at least. They're gonna try to
And Kevin Porter
no,
Jr.
and yeah, keep PG. But I mean, Klay Thompson, of course, is available here, and I mean, but he could work out good on that team if they were able to get him. I mean, I personally think they should go after him, and then so like for Westbrook, it's like I don't know. I mean,
Yeah, the Westbrook too.
could
Yeah.
treat him like there's nice package that's good, but I really don't know what you could get back for him. But I think they should keep looking at what's available for Westbrook for trades and maybe trade him, maybe not, depending on packages teams would want. But it's really
It's
interesting.
Kevin Porter Jr. and Bones Highland, the future of the Clippers and the toilet bowl.
Well,
Yes, that's right. The Intuit
God.
Dome. I guess. Oh my gosh, I saw this thing on Twitter. It was Paul George in his hard hat at in the Intuit Dome, and the tweet was like, "I guess Paul George is just not into it." I'm like, man, that's perfect.
It's classic.
But yeah, man, not a whole lot of news that we've gotten over the last few minutes besides that Paul George thing. I guess we could call it in a little bit, but one thing before we get out, is there anything that either of you guys want to see here any surprise that you guys want to see from this free agency this offseason?
I want to see Memphis sign somebody because I didn't like their draft pick at Zach Edey, and if he crumbles and doesn't have the impact that they need for him to have next to Jaren Jackson, you got rid of Steven Adams. I just don't know, like, if you're gonna have an answer if that doesn't pan out the way you'd like. So I'd like to see Memphis make a move. That's just me because I'm a fan.
Heck, low key, they could get Jonas Valanciunas back maybe if Valanciunas wants to go cheap and Valanciunas goes back to Memphis. I don't think that would be a bad fit at all there.
I don't
Um,
either. Yeah, that's kind of what I had in mind.
Ben, what do you think? What is a surprise that you hope to see over the next few days?
Well, I mean, I'd say, well, I don't know. I mean, I guess just fun surprises where, like, I don't know, like, some big player gets moved and
Yeah, big
they
player like
just get moved to a team that, like, we didn't totally expect this player to get traded to. Like, I don't know, who knows? Maybe that could happen with Brandon Ingram or Zach Levine or somebody in free agency, signing somewhere, right? Just something that I'm like surprised by. It's always fun for me.
Yeah, anything could be up on the table. I mean, we were talking about the Paul George trade. I remember when that happened. That was a huge shock when that happened because right before that, Kawhi had just signed to the Clippers, and Paul George just out of nowhere ends up a Clipper.
Just
Requests a trade
thinking
from the
about
Thunder,
the
and
Clippers, I'm like, well, they lose Paul George of the 76ers. Well, they're still DeMar DeRozan as a free agent. And could they go after him if they lose Paul George to like try to like bring him in along
I,
with what
yeah,
they got?
I wouldn't be
Thinking
mad
they
at that at
need.
all.
I'd say they should go for that if they lose Paul George.
DeMar DeRozan back home in LA, but with the Clippers instead. That'd be
Yeah.
fun.
I got a question for you guys. You know how college recruit like seniors in high school when they pick what college they want to go to, they like make a video or like they put the hat on or whatever. How do you guys feel about NBA players like not doing like the decision thing, but like let's just make a commercial like to announce what team I'm going to. Like, how do you guys feel about putting out something like a cool video on social media and like that's how you announce?
That
That'd
would
be
that'd be super cool. I'd love that.
That would be a lot of fun. I mean, the best thing I could probably think, like the only thing that we've really gotten of that variety over the last couple of years is just Patrick Beverly releasing all this news through his podcast. That's really
Eh,
it. Him announcing his own free agency and his trades through his podcast. But that's really all we've gotten. Like I remember back in that crazy 2016 offseason when Hassan Whiteside, I think, just made a video on Snapchat or Instagram to reveal that he was staying with Miami. But that's really all we've gotten. We don't really get those Players Tribune articles about players in their announcement to switch teams.
right
Um,
now, I just saw something from Shams. The Pistons plan to sign Cade Cunningham to a 5-year, $226 million maximum rookie extension.
yeah,
Oh,
Pistons signing Cade to the rookie max deal. We do finally get some more breaking news. But it's about Cade staying with the Pistons on the full max deal. This I I don't know. I feel like I was kind of expecting this, but when you see the full number, it's like, wow. 5 years, 226 million for a guy that's I brought up the number I think last episode when talking about the Pistons about their wins over his career. Yes, he's won 54 games in his career over his first 3 seasons.
how many $1 million is that per win?
Oh my goodness.
Uh,
Let's do some math here. 4 million per win over his career.
You know what NBA stands for? Never broke again.
Oh, I Absolutely. Well, what are your guys' initial thoughts about Cade, about the Pistons signing Cade to the 5-year max?
I
Um,
personally think it was a bit of an overpay by the Pistons. Like,
to me, it kind of feels like the Pistons are putting handcuffs on him and throwing him in jail because of their state of their franchise and the talent level that Cade has. 5 years is a long
oh,
time.
I mean, well, the good thing
yeah.
about the landscape of the league now is that if he becomes fed up, he can request out, and this will be a movable contract. I don't think that this will be an untradeable contract that could come back to bite me
That
later
depends
on.
how it
But
does.
I think Cade Cunningham, I think he's just been put in a very rough situation. I think his first 2 years were kind of about the same. I know in the 2022-23 season, his second year, he was injured for most of it, only played 12 games. This year, I thought he was pretty solid. I mean, 23.7 assists, improved the three-point shot a little bit. He was more efficient on all areas of the court. But of course, he's on such a bad Pistons team, it's kind of hard to really gauge how that can be. But I think that this is fine. I mean, this is their franchise cornerstone going forward. I mean, he's their number one pick. So him staying there, I think that makes a lot of sense. Um, so yeah, I don't think that it's too crazy. Could end up looking crazy when we're 3-4 years in this deal.
Woj just tweeted more than just unlikely the Clippers and Paul George are moving on from each other. Sources tell ESPN it's pretty much confirmed, I think he's going to the 76ers.
The Clippers just released a statement about Paul George, telling them that he's signing with a different team, which is very interesting. That it's
It's like a
already
bad
happened.
breakup.
Yeah,
It's like,
pretty.
I mean, are we watching The Bachelor, The Bachelorette, or what are we doing here?
That's pretty much
Rough
what this is.
breakup.
Paul George isn't giving the Clippers a rose, and he's finding another team to give out his rose to.
Yeah, it doesn't look like there are any other teams in the running for Paul George. So he could make his decision decision. I don't know why I can't say that word, to join Philadelphia tonight here. So that could be something that we do see tonight. Paul George to the 76ers. Well, speaking of the 76ers, I actually just got a Sham bomb that
Shambam.
veteran guard Eric Gordon is going to the 76ers to
Oh,
Holy
add
moly.
to that team. So what are
oh.
your guys' initial thoughts on Eric Gordon going to the 76ers?
I like the move for Philly.
I
The
like
rich get
that.
richer. It's a
And I think
preemptive Paul George backup.
Pretty much, yeah.
I like what the 76ers doing a lot right now. They're getting better depth wise, and also I think they're going to be able to get even better top heavy wise because I think they're going to land Paul George still. Oh, 76ers are having a big W of free agency, I think, so far. So
They're
far,
gonna
things
I
are looking real good for them here right now in free agency.
day one. The Sixers are definitely looking like the biggest winners of free
Yeah, I
agency.
gotta imagine that Eric Gordon will be able to have a bigger
Yeah.
playoff role than Buddy Hield and Tobias Harris were in that second round matchup versus the Knicks this year.
He should be better. As being a veteran player. This guy now 35 years old, and he's a guy that wants to win a title. He wants to win
Isn't
a
he?
title.
He's playing for the Bahamas or Barbados in FIBA.
Yes, he's playing for the Bahamas with Klay Thompson
Yeah,
and
he's got
Buddy
some.
Hield.
He
And
hit some
DeAndre
big
Ayton.
buckets for the Bahamas. Like he's got some ice in his veins.
He does. He's always been a very good scorer, especially early in his career when he was a Clipper, then involved in the Chris Paul trade. Injuries kind of, um,
One of those
delayed
guys
his
that you.
progression a little bit. But in Houston, great 3-point shooter. Was on the end of those Rockets rebuilding teams, and ever since that, going to the Clippers a couple years ago, Phoenix last year, now Philadelphia. It's clear all he wants to do is win at this stage of his career, and he's going to have a good role on the 76ers.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that you always try and trade for on 2K in the MyGM mode. He's a great 2K player.
Yeah, he can shoot threes, and he's a decent defender. He's never been incredible, but he's always solid. You wonder how that'll get as he grows along in
Yeah,
his
he's like
career.
6'4", 6'5", has great IQ and awareness on that end.
Yes. Okay, we have another big signing here coming here. Well, I don't know about big, but this is going to be a fun one coming from Chris Haynes. That Chris Paul, just recently released from the Golden State Warriors, is joining Victor Wembanyama in San Antonio
Oh,
to the Spurs.
oh,
Wow,
Yes.
fun.
CP3 to the Spurs. They got a point guard. They got a veteran point guard to pair with Wemby.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think for them. I mean, I think Chris Paul, w- with all those young guys, will really be a great better for all those guys on that team. And I think especially for Stefan Castle, the guy that he drafted for UConn, I think his game's kind of similar to what Chris Paul's has been in the NBA. I think Chris Paul will be huge to him and to Wemby and the rest of that team. So I really like that. That definitely helps San Antonio.
Yeah, I think this is a great fit. And there's already reportings that Chris Paul was interested in signing there before he even got let go from the Warriors. I think it'll be a great fit. Pop and Chris Paul are a dynamic duo. That'll be awesome. And then I think he can really be a good mentor, like you said, Ben, for Stephon Castle, their number 4 overall draft pick.
This is honestly kind of surprising to me because, I would have expected Chris Paul at this point to try to go to another contender there to try to win a championship at this point. He seems content with going to San Antonio and trying to, maybe raise his stock a little bit to develop some young guys there to pair with him and Wemby. I mean, we've seen him do it. We saw him do it with Shea Gilgeous-Alexander and OKC for that 1 year. Devin Booker in Phoenix. He's always been good at helping, young guys out there, but that's honestly kind of surprising to me that he ends up going to the Spurs
Do
because
you think they talked about a stipulation where he asked to get traded around the deadline if like there's a contending team interested and there's a decent package where they can kind of set him up and it doesn't hurt them too bad?
yeah, that definitely could be possible that he could be a big buyout candidate
Right.
mid-season or trade to go to a contending team because well for the first half of the year at the very least he could help the San Antonio Spurs who I don't think will be I mean I didn't think that they would be in much they would be competitive a lot in the Western Conference this season cuz talking in our last episode the draft recap we thought that the Spurs would take another season to try to find that franchise guy to pair with Wemby in next year's draft. But we've seen in rebuilds that getting veteran guys is very, very important. It's very underrated. So for the Spurs to get a guy like Chris Paul, that's huge for them. That's huge for them. Shout out to the Spurs for getting Chris Paul.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, it's gonna be fun. I'm excited for that for them.
Yeah, I mean Chris Paul. I mean, there may not be another player that knows how to throw lobs than Chris Paul with him being in Lob City for all those years. Now he can literally throw it anywhere, and Wemby could just catch it up and throw it down.
Lob City 2.0.
Lob City
Ah,
2.0. Man, that's gonna be
All
that
right,
is.
Miles, what are you most looking forward to the next 24 hours or so?
Uh, let's see. What am I looking most forward to? I guess probably seeing where Clay Thompson ends up, and and they may go hand in hand where Clay Thompson goes and what the Lakers decide to do if they can get a guy to help them with their team to see if LeBron actually ends up taking a pay cut. Those are probably my two biggest things. Um, and I guess how these other Eastern Conference teams can match what the 76ers and the Magic have done improving their teams, getting Paul George for the Sixers, most likely Caldwell Pope to the Magic. How those other teams like the Cavaliers, the Heat, those other teams around the Celtics and the Knicks, how they can improve their teams going forward. Since the East is definitely improving now with those guys coming over from the West.
I hope. Go ahead, Ben.
True. It's like, I think, Paul George, I think, going to the 76ers now that, they'll make the East, I would say, like,
Do you
like, I think how better the 76ers are getting now tonight that, they're definitely going to be a big threat to New York and Boston, who are also top.
Oh, Ben leaves us. Yeah, he was going in and out a little bit there. But Nick, what were you gonna say?
do you think the Cavs will ever sign Donovan Mitchell?
Oh, the Cavalier with Donovan Mitchell. I think that I'm gonna assume that that's gonna happen within the next couple days.
That's that's good. That's my guess too. Yeah.
Because I know that the Cavaliers front office and some of their new head coach Kenny Atkinson, they're up with Donovan Mitchell, who's in LA right now, holding an Adidas Elite Guard camp right now. So I'm pretty sure that the Cavs are going to probably offer that extension to him during this trip over the next couple days.
I'm most excited to see how everyone around the league reacts to the official end of Kawhi and Paul George, and I'm just excited to see the media bash Paul George. I love Paul George, but the media don't for some reason. So there's definitely some comments from Shannon Sharp. So I'm just excited to see that.
Or will well, this is going to be great if Paul George ends up to the Sixers, because now the biggest meme I'm going to predict of this whole offseason is going to be, I think it was before game 4 or game 5 of the finals, when Paul George and Joel Embiid were on NBA Countdown, and Joel Embiid said, like, yeah, we're going to try to get some talent, and then looks over Paul George's way. That's going to be the biggest meme of the offseason now that Paul George is looking like he's going to be a Sixer. That's going to be fun to see all the
Oh yeah.
things that the media does with that.
That'll be awesome. That's for sure.
You're right though, Nick. I don't know why Paul George is not liked by the media a whole lot. Like, I don't think he's really done anything wrong really by the media. At least that I don't remember.
I just hope he gets a ring. Even though if it would come in Philly, that would be terrible. I'd rather him get a ring in Indiana. He should go back to Indy.
Oh, well, for sure. I think it would still be meaningful though in Philadelphia, considering that it's not like they've been very successful now without him. Like, I think that if he went to the Sixers and he was the missing piece for that team, I think that would be pretty significant for him in his career.
Yeah, I mean, if Paul George signs with Philly tonight or tomorrow, then we really do have a three-headed dragon on top of the East now, which is pretty exciting. And it does include Milwaukee.
Yeah, I mean, you think of how talented the Eastern Conference would be. With, of course, the Celtics at the top, New York, Philadelphia if they get Paul George, the Bucks have Dame and Giannis. I think the Cavs will improve a lot with a new head coach. They'll be in the running. Miami,
the Magic, Indiana.
Yeah, man. Indiana made the conference finals, and they could potentially be playing. Like, it's unbelievable.
That'll be fun. I mean, that should be nice and competitive.
Like, you look at the Eastern Conference. When you look at the East standings, like all these top 8 teams in the East, going from Boston down to Miami as the 8th seed, all 8 of these teams, you could make a case will have a shot next season to make a conference final.
Yeah, I think it's just as wide open as it has been the last couple of years, which is very exciting.
Very, very exciting, especially considering, since I guess really since Denver lost in the second round, the the stat or whatever was that we haven't seen a repeat champion since the Warriors 2017-2018. We have not seen a repeat champion. So the Celtics, they're of course going to be going for it again next season.
Sorry.
So will one of those other teams in the East be able to knock off the Celtics in that competitive East? I don't think it will be as much of a cakewalk for the Celtics as it was this season.
I agree. Yeah. Just with how teams are getting better in the East, yeah. And I think the Knicks and the 76ers will be even tougher on them next year. And I think like I predict the the Celtics when they go up against the Magic and the Pacers and the Cavs will even have tougher time of trying to beat them next year. But I still think we'll obviously be the better team than those teams next year.
Yeah, most likely that will be the case. So the Chris Paul deal is going to be 1 year, 11 million for San Antonio, which I think that's pretty decent to come in and be a teacher for a team that has so many rookie contracts on that team. You had to spend your money somehow, and you give 11 million to Chris Paul. According to Chris Haynes, Chris Paul had a great talk with Spurs coach Greg Popovich and was sold on the culture and opportunity to help elevate the game of Victor Wembanyama. CP3 is eager and motivated to showcase he's still an elite guard in this league. So I think it's going to be great there. I think another interesting fact with this is that it probably rules out the Spurs as a destination for other guards on the market like Trae Young, Darius Garland. I think the Spurs are probably now set with their point guard there. As we get a Woj bomb here on another free agent signing, that free agent center Jonas Valanciunas, who we were talking about before, has agreed to a 3-year, $30 million deal to the Washington Wizards.
Wizards.
Valanciunas headed to the Washington Wizards. This is a bit of a shocker, as we were talking about his potential fit in LA, maybe as a big, ends up going to the Wizards, who really don't have a big their own sense besides Alex Sarr, who they just drafted. Nick, what are your initial reactions to Valanciunas ending up with the Wizards?
I'm disappointed that he didn't go to a better team, but also just very surprised that no one was willing to offer him more than $10 million a year.
Yeah, I mean, last season in the playoffs, he really wasn't that playable against OKC.
Right.
But I still think he's a solid enough player that another
He
team
win you games.
he can win you some games potentially.
Well, he can help win you games.
Ben, what do you think about this? This is a bit of a shocker here.
This is a shocker, right? This is funny that this happened. I don't quite get why the Wizards did this. I mean, he should get better presence, I would say, for that team. Yeah, they did need more big help. So like, I think I think it was good because I mean, yeah, I know this is like a veteran, but you'd have to pay like too much for the guy, and I'd say like we talked about earlier, veterans can help with rebuilds, and I think James Valanciunas can help with the Wizards this year with them trying to build and stuff. So I think this is a good move. I mean, I thought he was gonna uh get a more so contending team, but like Chris Paul, surprisingly he didn't. He chose the rebuilding team, but it'll be fun still. I'm excited to see how this works out for him and the Wizards.
Yeah, it looks like Jonas Valanciunas he must have valued starting because he definitely will have a chance to start at least for the start of the season that he'll be able to start, or maybe they start Alex Sarr at the 4 because I saw some things that he was interested in maybe playing the power forward position. So maybe you can play them both together there. Yeah, Nick, go ahead.
Just a missed opportunity for some good teams.
Yeah, it definitely is. But again, maybe us as fans, I mean, there is possibility that fans sometimes can overvalue or overhype the value of a certain player. Maybe his value was 3 years, $30 million on a rebuilding team, and if that is the case, if you're Washington, I think you do it because, I mean, we've said it before, veterans are key. I think that something that is a little head scratching with this. This was a move that was a little head scratching without this Valanciunas news, was that Rashawn Holmes, they're signing him to a 2-year, $25 million deal. A guy that really has not done a whole lot over the last couple seasons. They're willing to re-sign him, so he's another big. You do the Valanciunas move. It's a little perplexing that you did both of those moves.
Uh,
So
Don't you like
I
that
don't
word perplexing?
well, no, it's fine. It's just like I don't know. It's interesting thought process. They have the funny. But
Like you said, what direction are they going
good
here?
move.
Well, the direction is to be bad. The direction is to be bad.
Yeah,
And I think Valanciunas
and I
can
think
help
they are
lead.
trying to rebuild and hope they can get a top pick, which you know, it's going to be a loaded class next year, the 2025 draft class. So, I mean, I think they're thinking the right way. I mean, I like their direction, though. That's for sure. Continue to rebuild. Hope you get a top pick in next year's draft, so you can hopefully get like a big franchise, player like maybe Cooper Flag or Ace Bailey, one of those guys.
Yeah, I mean that's what the Wizards are going for. They're gonna look to rebuild again, and Valanciunas is not gonna be a bad guy at all. I mean, he'll put up numbers. I mean, that's another thing with this. 3 years, 30 million. This is not. I mean, I said the same thing with Cade, but 3 years, 30 million. This guaranteed. This is not an untradeable contract going forward. If a contending team needs big man play, they can go ahead and call up the Wizards and give Valanciunas, and that's another like low key strategy that some rebuilding teams use that not a lot of people talk about. Like, I guess it's kind of like what the Pistons just did with acquiring Tim Hardaway. Like, sometimes you have to acquire a bad or a contract to receive draft picks. Maybe Jonas Valanciunas is a guy that he can get you draft picks going forward or
Yeah.
something, a late first or an early second or something like that.
I'm excited to see him in a leadership role here in Washington.
Yeah, that'll certainly be fun there because they really
Uh-huh,
didn't have
yeah.
many vets at all last season there. It was kind of crazy there in Washington with Jordan Poole, Kyle Kuzma.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, fellas. Well, this was a blast.
Yes, this was a crazy
Yes.
yeah, well,
Awesome.
we were asking for some surprising moves. We just got one with
We just
Valanciunas.
got him.
Washington Wizards. Oh, I have a feeling
Yeah.
that as soon as we get off, we're gonna have some crazy blockbuster move get off. But if we do, we'll talk about it again in the next episode of the Run in the Paint podcast. Thanks to all who have tuned in live. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe for more NBA offseason content. You guys have anything else before we get out of here?
Well, that's just, I would say, an awesome and successful Run the Paint Live podcast.
Thanks for joining us,
bringing
Ben.
me on for the first live podcast. It's awesome. Hope for more of these in the future for big events like that are like free agency.
Summer League championship game.
Summer League championship game. Yes, exactly. We'll definitely have you back on for more to talk about some more free agency moves. Well, again, thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and we will catch you in the next one.